Do you own a set of alcohol markers but aren't sure how to use them in your journal? It's no secret that alcohol marker inks tends to bleed through pages and create ghosting. Hi friends, I'm Ian DJ from the Archer and Olive Ambassador team and Raven Fox 13 on Instagram. Today, I'm excited to share tips on how to effectively incorporate alcohol markers into your journal. Let's explore how to harness their blending capabilities and even turn bleeding and ghosting into creative opportunities. I'll walk you through simple, tried and true hacks to make the most of your alcohol markers in your journaling adventures. To start, we'll be using several materials today. I'll be using my Archer and Olive notebook, Archer and Olive washi tapes, alcohol markers, some pencil and eraser, fine liners that are alcohol marker friendly, extra sheets of paper, you can also use a sticker sheet and or adhesive. I have created the printable for you to test out the tips we'll be discussing today. I recommend printing it with a pigment or laser toner printer to ensure the outlines won't smudge when you use alcohol markers. You can use the printable as a visual guide, you can turn it into a stencil, or use it as a practice sheet to master your alcohol marker techniques. The very first tip in using alcohol markers on journal would be to test the colors first. Always test your colors on a spare piece of paper or a designated test page in your journal, as the ink often looks different on paper compared to the marker caps. I like to organize my alcohol marker into color groups, ensuring each group has a good range of light and dark tones for smooth blending. Labeling your color swatches to match the pens can make future spreads much easier to plan. To prevent ink from bleeding through the next page, always remember, place an extra sheet of paper underneath or use a special bleed-proof sheet for added protection. There are several effective techniques for blending with alcohol markers. Here are 3 methods that I frequently use in my artwork. The first method is the light to dark blending. You can start with the lightest color as a base and then layer the midtone over it. Add the darkest color for depth, and finally, use the lightest color again to blend everything smoothly. The second method is the dark to light blending. For this, we begin with the darkest color, and then layer and blend the midtone into it. Finish by blending everything with the lightest color. The third method is called circular blending. You can combine the light to dark and the dark to light methods, but this time use small circular strokes instead of linear ones for a softer, more seamless blend. You can also try different methods like stippling, hatching, and layering to achieve unique textures and effects. Alcohol markers can mimic watercolor and even color pencil effects with practice. You can practice these methods on the blank sheet of paper or experiment with my mushroom illustrations from the printable. Test different color combinations and blending techniques to find what works best. Once colored, you can cut out the mushrooms and use them as an ephemera for your next journal spread, adding a playful and personalized touch to your pages. Tip number 2. Let the ink bleeding and ghosting create opportunities. You will notice that alcohol inks from these markers bleed like crazy on the back of the paper. If you draw and color directly on your journal, the back part would probably become unusable because of this. So what are we gonna do now? Let's embrace ink bleeding and ghosting as a creative opportunity. Instead of viewing them as drawbacks, let them inspire unique ideas and layering effects in your journal. Use the bleed through to create mirrored patterns or complementary artworks on the opposite page. Ghosting can serve as a subtle guide for tracing, layering, or adding depth to your designs. By working with these effects, you can transform imperfections into artistic features that enhance your journal's personality. In this example, I just drawn several circles in different shapes to act as a border for my full spread. On the back, you'll see that it bled through, and what I did was I made some matching mushrooms colored to make it as if these are intentional. You can also follow some of the patterns that I have prepared in the printable to make them into borders or background elements that can be used in creating your spread, as seen in these pages. In these journal spreads, I've embraced the bleed through as a design guide to inspire the next spread. It's a fun and innovative way to spark creativity and challenge yourself to think outside the box. By letting the ink patterns guide your design, you can create unique, cohesive layout that flows naturally from one page to the next. Feel free to use the organic pattern guide from the printable as inspiration for decorative borders or backgrounds in your spread. You can also transform it into a stencil by cutting out the shapes after printing, adding versatility to your creative process. The third tip would be, if it bleeds too much, cover it up. If the ink bleeding on the next page feels overwhelming, you can easily cover it up with washi tape, scrap paper, or decorative sheets. Not only does this hide the bleed through, but it also adds charm and dimension through a layered effect, enhancing the overall aesthetic of your journal. Feel free to add those cute mushroom ephemera that you colored to match the overall color theme of the spreads. Here are some examples where the washi tapes and the mushroom ephemera are incorporated in a fun spread. Always remember that you can always experiment with different materials you can use when journaling. For tip number 4, here are some things to remember when coloring and working with colors. Creating amazing blends with alcohol markers in your journal requires the right technique and tools. Here are some tips to achieve smooth and vibrant blending. First, to minimize bleed through when using alcohol markers for borders or large areas, opt for pastel or light colors. These shades are less likely to saturate the paper heavily. Second, blend 2 or more colors to create custom hues, adding more dimension and uniqueness to your artwork. Use contrasting or complementary colors for shading rather than just darker tones. This can add vibrancy and depth to your work. Third, focus on coloring smaller sections at a time to maintain the ink's moisture for easier blending and smoother coverage. Alcohol markers blend best while the ink is still wet. Work quickly and blend colors before they dry for seamless gradients. Coloring over one spot too many times can cause the paper to saturate, bleed, or even tear. Let layers dry between application. Brush tip markers provide more control and smoother blend compared to chisel or bullet tips, making them ideal for gradients and fine details, like what I use here in most of my samples. Practice feathering with alcohol markers to achieve smooth color transitions. Use a flicking motion, starting with one color, and lightly overlap it with a second using the same technique for seamless blending. Lastly, enhance your alcohol marker journal spreads with finishing touches. You can use a white gel pen to create highlights, fine details, or accents. For an extra pop, incorporate metallic pens to add a touch of shimmer and sophistication. Blending is a skill that improves with practice, so don't hesitate to experiment with different techniques. The last tip in using alcohol markers on journal is, of course, take care of your alcohol markers. Here are some things to remember so that you can use your markers longer without any issues. First, keep marker tips clean by scribbling on scrap paper if colors start blending unintentionally. This helps preserve their vibrancy and extends their lifespan. Second is store the markers horizontally to ensure even ink distribution between both tips. This prevents drying out and maintains consistent ink flow. Keep your alcohol markers clean and well maintained for smoother use and better results in your journal spreads. Proper care ensures consistent performance and vibrant colors. I hope these tips on using alcohol markers on journals have sparked your creativity. Try experimenting with them in your new Archer and Olive notebooks. I'd love to see your journal spreads featuring alcohol markers. Feel free to share your creations. For even more inspiration, follow me on social media. Just search for RavenFox13 on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If you create a page or two using the fun ideas I've shared here, don't forget to tag me and Archer and Olive. Add these hashtag AOShare and hashtag Archer and Olive so the community can easily find your posts. So let's grab more notebooks to fill and share this vlog with your friends. Remember, you can use my code RavenFox13 for 10% off your orders at Archer and Olive. Stay inspired and doodle those worries away. This is Ian DJ, RavenFox13. Ciao! Bye-bye! See you again!